Hello. Welcome back to the Madison channel. My name is Madison, and today we have a very special episode of True Crime in Society where we will be discussing the Kayla Barfield case with her sister, Janan McDougal. Yes, I was able to secure another interview for this channel. I'm so excited about that. And again, just like with my first interview, if you have any constructive criticism, be nice in those comments. Comment down below and give me some advice, because I really took to heart the comments you left on my last video. A lot of them were really constructive and helpful, and I think I applied them in this next interview. So let me know what you think. I'm trying my best to get more interviews to the channel. I think it's just a natural progression for the channel, and I'm just so excited that I was able to secure this interview with Janan McDougal. That being said, if you're new here, please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when I post another video. There's a mountain of content for you to get through, so if you're here, if you're new, catch up. There's a ton of videos that I'm sure you're gonna love. If you're returning, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming back. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Please like and comment on this video so we can get it moving in the algorithm. That is more important now than ever for any video that I've ever made, because we are trying to get that algorithmic juju to bring more eyes to the case of Kayla Barfield. So if you please like, comment down below, do all the interactions you can, and most importantly, definitely make sure to check out the links in the pinned comment, which I will explain further. The case for Kayla Barfield is a peculiar one for many reasons. It's a very unsettling one as well, and it makes you not want to trust people, and it makes you understand how the kindness of strangers is unfortunately something in this world that can lead you down a path of no return. I think it is really important for this video, like I said, for you guys to interact, because this case has happened a year ago, over a year ago. Kayla passed away on the 11th of March 2022, and there has effectively been no forward progression with the case. The case is not classified by as a homicide by the police department involved with investigating this case, even though 100% is a homicide. And we just need as many eyes and as many ears on this as possible. If you know somebody who lives in the DC area, if you know somebody who lives in the DC area and had a similar experience like Kayla, if you just know something and you need the extra push to come forward, please do so, because the family is needing justice. This chapter of their lives deserves to be closed, and it's important that we are able to help them in that journey. So here's what you guys can do to contribute to helping get this case solved and helping us get justice for Kayla. First and foremost, you can do one of three things, or all three, depending on what your flavor is. Please do one of these three things at least, but all of these three things would be wonderful. First and foremost, you can call the lead homicide detective for the case. His name is Brian Adelmeyer at 202-430-8924, or you can call his Lieutenant Petz at 202-553-4132. If you call them and say you want justice for Kayla Barfield, or ask for just put the pressure on them so they know that there's a world of people watching, there's a world of people who care about getting justice for Kayla. The other thing you can do as well is, if you go to my pinned comment, there's a link to the Justice for Kayla GoFundMe, and or in my description box there's a link for the Justice for Kayla GoFundMe, and that is where Kayla's family is trying to raise money to hire a private investigator to do what the police are refusing to do, which is truly investigate and get the truth out of this case. The second part is they are planning on starting a foundation in the name of Kayla Barfield, where they plan on raising money and mutual aid for children who've been affected by a parent being unalived or dying in a sudden tragic way. So again, a good cause in general, but first and foremost, they need to get justice for Kayla, and part of that is getting a private investigator. So again, the links are in my description box and my pinned comment, so please check those out. Do one of those three things at least, or do all three at most. That'd be wonderful. Before we get into the interview, I just want to hit on a couple of points very quickly. First and foremost, I'm wearing purple. Purple is a color of royalty, but it also just so happens to be the favorite color of Kayla Barfield. When me and her sister were going back and forth about coordinating doing this interview, I had made a point to ask what her favorite color was, so I came dressed in purple for Kayla, in honor of Kayla. I also want to just say that, TikTok is an amazing place. TikTok is a place that I've been able to secure 2 interviews at this point. I was tagged in a comment underneath one of Janan McDougal's videos on TikTok telling the story of her sister's murder, and I knew right away that I had to make contact with her and see if she was willing to do an interview with me. She's the sweetest woman you will see in this interview. Wonderful, well-spoken, very poised person, especially under the circumstances, and she truly just wants justice for Kayla. We were able to coordinate an interview in the DMs on TikTok, and here we are. I'm so excited to be working with her and try to contribute anything I can to getting justice for Kayla Barfield. And lastly, I just want to say this before we just start the interview with Janan. This case is another example of how our lives, meaning women of color, Black women, are just not valued the same as other lives. And that's really the driving force as to why I was inspired to take this case. When you hear the level of negligence and incompetence demonstrated by this particular police department, specifically these particular police officers, you will be shocked to know that, in my opinion, this case could have been an open and shut case. There are many people who saw these 2 individuals. There's lots of evidence. There's videotapes. There's lots of things that they could use in order to try and triangulate who these people are. Unfortunately, the police incompetence and negligence was a huge roadblock, and now more than a year later, we're still waiting for any kind of update on them doing an investigation on this case. That's all I'll say in terms of spoilers, but I just want you guys to understand that this is what the average Black family has to go through in order to get justice for someone in their family who is a victim of a crime. I think that point is super important, and I want you to notice and pay attention to what this family has had to do, what Janan herself has had to do in order to keep this story in front of people's eyes, to keep it relevant, to keep people talking about it. I just think that we need to understand that, and hopefully we as a community can do what we can to push for more justice to be paid to Kayla Barfield's case and to get this case solved, point blank, period. So without further ado, go check out the interview with Janan McDougal and myself, where we discuss her sister Kayla Barfield's murder case. All right, everybody. So today we have a special episode of True Crime in Society. We are going to be having our second interview on the channel. We are going to be discussing the case of Kayla Barfield. We have her sister, Janan McDougal, here to discuss her story, and we're going to get straight into that. I just want to say really quickly, Janan and I found each other through TikTok. She's been very active on her TikTok trying to discuss her sister's story to get justice for Kayla. #justice for Kayla. If you guys, like I said in the introduction, there's going to be the numbers of the detective, the homicide detective, and his lieutenant, as well as the link to Justice for Kayla's GoFundMe to donate so they can kind of really invest in getting justice for Kayla. So all of that information will be both in the description box as well as in the pinned comment. And that being said, welcome Janan McDougall. Yay! Hi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this. I know this is a painful story that you've been reliving, but I'm just so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, I'm so grateful that you picked up this story. There are so many people that look like my sister, Kayla, that looks like me, that looks like you. And, God forbid we ever find ourselves in a situation where we need to really have justice. Coming on, really stepping into this seat, I've realized how much advocacy we really need. Unfortunately, my sister, her time is gone. So I'm left to stand in the gap and advocate for her.
I'm so glad you're here, and you're so right. And that is why I have the YouTube channel I do have. I don't know if you've been following the case or if it's just a little too close to home, but I've been tracking the Shanquella Robinson case. And what ended up happening at this point, the FBI basically said they don't want to investigate the homicide. And it's a different circumstance, but we running into the same problems as women of color, as Black women. There is just a tougher time for us to seek justice. There's a lot more hoops we have to go through. We're not believed, we're not taken seriously. And all of that trickles down into our cases not being solved and justice not coming for us, which is so unfortunate because the families attached to, your family with Kayla, Shanquella's family, Breonna Taylor's family, all of these women, all of these Black women, strong, beautiful Black women who, unfortunately, their time has gone, not by their own doing. They deserve justice. They deserve to be heard. And I am just so happy you're here today to help bring justice to Kayla's name and try and get her the justice that she deserves. So we'll start off a little slow. Like I said, I reached out to you on TikTok because I was tagged in one of your videos talking about Kayla. Now, it was actually kind of in the middle of the story. It was a video where you were showing the recordings. And I was like, whoa, I've never heard of this case. This is insane. There's recordings. It just blew my mind. And one of my followers had tagged me because they knew it was right up my alley in terms of stories I'd like to cover. And I just wanted to ask you, how many people have reached out to you? What was your initial reaction to me reaching out and all of that?
Prior to, this tragic event that happened, my social media profile was pretty low key. I hadn't really stepped into that scene before.
Right.
So, when my sister was tragically unalived, I realized it was a whole year that went by and there hadn't been any movement in the case.
Mm.
And it dawned on me. We literally came to the 1-year anniversary, and it dawned on me that there was nobody coming to save us. There was nobody that was going to help us. We were going to continuously get the same type of response over and over again. And so I said, we're stronger as a unit. And so I said, you know what? I'm just going to put it out here. I put myself out there completely vulnerable for the world to see. And as a result, it got into it got in front of many eyes. In fact, I think the first video, I think that's at like 2.4 million views or something like that. And the response, with the community, just really justice for Kayla, just standing behind us and trying to do any and everything that they could is really been overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you were talking about that realization that, it has to be us. No one is going to go the extra mile. No one is going to go out of their way. It has to be us. And it's unfortunate that that was at the year anniversary. You see some of these cases that come up with other people who are a different color than us, who are able to get, the response really quickly, who are able to get the case solved within days, weeks, months, and to wait a year and to still not see any progress is just absolutely mind-boggling, because from what I heard from the story, and we'll get into that shortly, there's a lot of evidence there to be able to figure out exactly who these people are, where they're at, and all of that. It seems to me like it just needs a couple police officers to do their job to get this all wrapped up for you and your family to have some peace. So I think that was the most frustrating thing on my end, where it's just like, you guys have been doing the best you can. You have this information and they're just not pursuing it, which shows me that unfortunately our lives don't matter as much as some other ones. But that being said, I just wanted to get into, your life growing up. Did you grow up with Kayla? Who's the oldest? How many kids are there? What was Kayla like as a kid?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's in our home, it was four of us inside of that home, inside of my mother and my dad's house. So it's four of us that grew up together, and I was the oldest. Kayla was the youngest, and there were and I have two brothers in between that grew up in the same house. And our home life when we were growing up was I would say it was great. We were very, very close. We have a very strong family that is built on hard work and entrepreneurship. And so, we grew up seeing hard work. We grew up learning how to build businesses. And so as a result, as Kayla got older, she was very bold and ambitious. And she said, I'm leaving Michigan and I'm going to Maryland. And so she met the love of her life, and they got married. They ended up having children. And so they started their family there. But she took the principles that she learned here when we were growing up, and she started a business out there. And so she and we would talk often, and, she was so incredibly proud of me and the business that I have. And, and so I really worked with her as not only just a big sister, but also a mentor. She kind of looked at me like a second mom. And so, that was our relationship. We were 9 years apart. So, we had a lot of space, distance. So, there was, of course we didn't hang out and things like that just because of the age gap, but I was definitely always the big sis.
Yeah, I feel like you never really hang up the big sis title. I have a big sister. She's 4 years older than me, and second mom, same thing. We're very close. Luckily, we don't live far apart, so it's wonderful. But yeah, so like you were kind of touching on, as she moved away, you guys still remained close. You still had a really strong bond, and I really admire that, because sometimes with certain family, when they move away, life gets in the way and all of that stuff. But I'm so glad that you guys had that strong bond together, even as you were older. Now, of course I did my research looking before I wanted to interview you. I didn't want to come ill prepared or whatever. And there are certain videos that touched on Kayla being in recovery for alcoholism and stuff like that. And I know, from speaking to you, that wasn't necessarily something you put out there. It was something that was put out there. And I just want to give you a moment to kind of speak on that and talk about that and just kind of address it. I know you made a video about it, but I just want to quickly say, some people take people's past and make that all who they are currently today and all of that. They never let people move past certain mistakes or certain situations that they were in. Personally speaking, I don't judge people on recovering, sobriety, things like that. There are different circumstances, and all you can say is that person noticed a problem, had the courage to get help. And that's all, I feel about that. Unfortunately, when it comes to our justice system and the court of public opinion, it can be read differently. And I think that, I just want you to address that really quickly. We can just get it out of the way from the beginning and move past it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to address also I do believe that unfortunately, oftentimes we are defined by our past instead of looking at what's going on in the present and, taking that and really using that as a defining point in our life. But in her case, unfortunately, that past is not serving her any good, or it hasn't served her any good at this point. When she was in her early 20s, she noticed that she felt like she was drinking too much. She chose herself, to pull away from alcohol. She never went into a treatment facility. She never did anything like that. She just chose that alcohol just wasn't for her because she knew that she needed to step away. As a result, as life went on, she learned a little bit more about how to properly, as she matured, you just learn, okay, I won't overdrink, or maybe just drinking isn't for me. And so, as Kayla passed away when she was 30.
Right.
She passed away. She wasn't drinking at that time. And the toxicology reports, they came back and there was no drugs or alcohol in her system either. So.
Right. I'm so glad you addressed that because, in my channel, centering about with BIPOC true crime or by true crime centering marginalized individuals, what you find is a lot of people like to pull at strings to delegitimize them as victims. And that is something that I don't see with other demographics of people. People will pull at all sorts of stuff to try and say, well, that makes her like this, or that proves that this. And I think what we're both touching on is you shouldn't be defined by your past, but also on top of that, that still doesn't legitimize what happened to her and what ended up happening to Kayla and why we're seeking justice for Kayla. So anyone bringing that up, it doesn't really take away or add to the case in any way. It just looks like you're trying to delegitimize her position as a victim, which she is. And that's where we're going to leave that, period. So, my next question is, around the time of Kayla unfortunately being murdered, what was her life like? How was she living? What was her situation? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so she was unfortunately like I said, she moved out to Maryland. She met the love of her life. They were together for 10 plus years. And then, as a lot of marriages do, theirs dissolved. And they decided to go their separate ways, in which they both decided to co-parent. She bought a home. He had his home. And she was so proud of this house that she purchased out in Capitol Heights, Maryland, because it was 100-year-old house that she was like a creative beyond creative. So she wanted to she was a DIYer, a fixer upper. She could do it all by herself. So this 100-year-old house she bought, she was like, perfect. This is great. This is right up my alley. I can just make this just everything.
Right.
When you get in there, you realize oh, well, wow, I really don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. And
Right.
there was a lot of issues that came along with the home. And as a result, she felt like it was best. And also we felt as a family, we just said, you know what, with everything that you have going on there, maybe just living in the house while you're under construction, maybe that's not the safest place for you. So, at that point, she decided that she would just do extended stay at a hotel, and that stuff gets expensive.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she didn't, so she found a hotel that was a couple of miles away from her home. She could pop in and out and check in on her house, but still remain there and remain at that hotel safe. Her and her dog, Dino, they were there.
That's great.
And so that's where she was, and that's why she was at the hotel. But in terms of her overall life, she loved her job. She worked for Aspen Institute. It was a nonprofit organization out there in DC. She was really, really excited and just on fire about the businesses that she had in the pipeline and things that she was already working on. And so, her friends loved her. She was just in a wedding, 2 weeks prior to, ultimately, her untimely passing. But that was her life. I mean, she was fun, loving, super creative, entrepreneur, just boss lady.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that's another thing, because what I saw in some of the other interviews was that some people were harping on where she was staying and what kind of place it was and stuff like that. And I knew from watching all of your videos that you cleared that up instantly, you know what I mean? Work being done at the home, all if you know, all of that stuff is expensive, and usually you find out more problems when you open up this wall, and it can take longer than what they say. So, her being at that specific hotel also doesn't really, hint at any kind of nefarious, any kind of anything. It's just the fact that, it was cost effective. She was doing an extended stay, and she had a home that she owned that she was fixing up. And, like I said, what you see with certain demographics of people, when they see little things to pick at, they're going to pick at those things. Some people like to blame someone for where they're at and all of that. The reality of the situation is, again, Kayla didn't deserve what happened to her. So my next question is, from your perspective on the early parts of, you know this story, like the woman, the baby, all of that kind of situation, if you could take me through a timeline of that aspect until when you stop getting a response from Kayla directly.
Certainly, yeah. So on February 27th, that was the day that both my mother and I, we had a phone conversation with my sister Kayla.
Mhm.
And during that time, she sounds like her normal self. And she's like, oh yeah, I met this woman. She has a baby. She has had a domestic situation. And she needed some shelter. She needed some safety. It's cold out here. And
Mhm.
I said, well, I don't think that's a good idea. I just really didn't feel like just taking somebody in off of the street at night was the best idea. But she just could not get beyond the fact that it was a 6-month-old child that could potentially be in danger. So she said, no, it's all good. I feel comfortable with the situation. I just really want to help this baby.
Right.
And so, she and I, we had a few phone conversations. That night we were still on the phone, for a couple of hours. Actually, it was we talked for a good long time, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
And then we got off the phone. We started texting back and forth a little bit, but it was a Sunday night, I remember, and I had to go to work the next day.
Mhm.
So, when I woke up the next morning, I saw that she probably texted me until about 2 a.m.
Mhm.
And then I responded at 7 and didn't hear anything, but I didn't think anything about that either.
Right.
It was Monday, everybody goes back to work.
Right.
So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday go by, and we're both busy. She's busy, I was busy. So, we didn't touch base at all. And then when we heard on the following Monday that her job, they said that she hadn't been to work all week, and that was unlike her. She had never missed work.
Mhm.
So that's when we knew something was off and something was wrong. So we immediately started to spring into action and call. Going through the timeline from this point, one of her friends, I was calling, my mother was calling, everybody else I think that knew of what was going on at the time, they were calling her phone. Someone picked up my sister's phone, and it was for my friend, for my sister's friend, excuse me.
Mhm.
And so that's how we've obtained these audios. And over the course of this conversation, it's probably about an hour long in audios. Over the course of the conversation, you just hear a lot of different things. You hear a lot of things that relates to ransom. You hear a lot of things relating to scamming and illegal activity as relates to my sister's Cash App accounts and things like that, where they were moving money to through my sister's Cash App accounts. And so, we said, okay, this is really, really weird.
Yeah.
So we fast forward through, and from that point, we got the police involved. Unfortunately, there was a couple of botched rescue attempts. And then, my mother and I, once she was finally found, when we got there, we arrived, I believe, on March 8th. And she was in critical condition, and she lived for about 36 hours, and she passed away.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, there's so much in that. I think that, what I'm hearing from you in all the interviews and the stories that you have of Kayla is that Kayla is someone with a big heart. And oftentimes, when you have a big heart, people see that or feel that energy from you and are able to prey on you. You know what I'm saying? I think, you know, what was really diabolical to me hearing about how she ended up in that situation with those people was the use and the manipulation of using a child. And you know, I just want people to understand that some people just genuinely want to help people. And oftentimes, because the world is so cruel, they can end up being being the victim of some kind of heinous crime in that kind of situation. So when I hear that story, all I hear is somebody that's caring about another human being, caring about a 6 month old baby, caring about this woman being in a DV situation. I don't look at that and say, why would she do that? Doesn't she know people are crazy? What I see is someone that hasn't been jaded or tainted by the world around us and is able to see someone genuinely want to help them. And there's too few people like that in the world. And unfortunately, because people take advantage of that, there are, you know, far less people, and they get into situations like this that are just not proper for their heart. And so I just wanted to say that because I just think that it's something to admire that she would see that and just go out of her way instantly, no questions asked, and just want to help this person. Going into kind of what you and your family, right? As you're getting piecemeal information, you hear she was a no call, no show for a week. You hear, you know, you're getting her friends calling these people. You're seeing the weird money activity happening and ransom talk and stuff like that. What were the biggest red flags where you kind of felt in your stomach, I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't seem good at all?
Mhm. I think when we originally, when we started calling, after we received the phone call from the job, we
Mm-hmm.
started calling and she wasn't answering. Like I said, you know, initially in the opening, the one thing, you know how we are sometimes with our own mothers, sometimes we're like, okay, you know, I'll listen to her later, you know, but the one thing, so if my mother couldn't get a phone call through, the one person who could was me. And
Mm-hmm.
so the fact that she wasn't answering or responding, that's when I felt it in my stomach. And I'm like, she always answers for me, you know? And so you know, when I sent her a message, I said, Kayla, answer the phone now. I just need to talk to you.
Right.
I received a text message back and said, I'm driving in the car right now with the baby. I can't talk right now.
Okay.
And I said, just answer really quick, please.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I called again, and when I called again, someone did answer. When they answered the phone, I heard her in the background, and
Okay.
I heard her, and she's very, very disoriented. Um, she sounded very, very distant.
Mm,
And all I heard was 7-Eleven,
mm,
seven
mm.
eleven. I said, Kayla, are you at 7-Eleven? And the phone hung up. I
Wow.
said, so that's when I said, oh, this is something, this is bigger than what we think. So that
Right.
from that point forward, we said, okay, let's play into this ransom thing. We're going to go ahead. If she needed some money, we're going to go ahead and give you the money. Uh,
Right.
and as a result, that's where the first botched attempt, that's when that went left.
Right. Um, I just want from your perspective, right? Knowing what you know now, it's been a year. Um, all the information that you've been able to gather about where she was, the different instances. What do you believe happened to your sister?
Yeah, I believe that she was set up. I believe that either someone who was at the hotel, they were watching her. They noticed that it was just a single woman going in and out with a dog, and that she didn't have anybody else that was coming in with her. I think that they preyed on her kindness, and once they earned her trust enough to get into that protected space, behind that door, and that's when they took advantage of her.
Mhm.
I do believe that they really did attempt to try to get as much money as they could. And ultimately they ended up beating her, and she finally succumbed to the injuries just because of everything, the trauma that her body had gone through.
Right.
But I believe it was a setup.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. I mean, I wonder, do you think these people knew her? Like, I know that you had a life where you're at, she had a life where she was at. So I don't know if you knew her circle, her friends, or anything like that. But I guess my question is, do you think it's possible that maybe she knew any of these people involved, or someone she knew these people? You know what I'm saying?
Right. So that's a good question. I don't know if she knew them, if she knew these people directly,
Mhm,
or if anybody within her circle, if they could have even known these people. I
mhm.
can't speak to that, just because I don't have that knowledge. The only thing that I can speak to with certainty is the conversation that she and I had, on February 27th, when she told me that I just met a person with a baby. She had no reason, actually. She volunteered that. She didn't have to say that either. She could
Right.
have, my homegirl, that I'm with is with a baby, so she didn't have to give me that information at all. So it wasn't, I didn't feel like she was trying to conceal or hide anything.
Right.
Um, I just don't know if, but you're right. There could have certainly been someone else that knew her within a circle, that knew she was staying at that hotel, that, could have, there are so many different things that, and angles that,
Yeah.
yeah, that I've tried to, present to the police and ask, have you looked at this and have you looked at that? And ultimately, I'm just kind of disregarded and pushed to the side.
Right. My next question too is, you know, when you say she seemed out of it on the phone, which is sounding like the last time you've heard her voice,
Yeah.
which while she was alive, would you say drugged, maybe tired, maybe scared, or anything like that? What do you mean by out of it?
Yeah. So, if the toxicology reports did not show that there was nothing in her system, then, I would have thought something else.
Okay.
But I don't. I know the medical examiner reports stated that, the actual cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. So, with any type of head injury,
Maybe a
you're
concussion.
absolutely. So I don't know if it was, her sounding very disoriented, could have certainly been because of whatever blunt force trauma happened to her head.
Right. Right. Um, Now what I really want to get into. Can you explain the introduction of the police involvement? Based on the police involvement, right? What you're saying, the bungled rescue attempts and all of that. Can you give me kind of an exact timeline of when the police got involved, your conversations with them, and how you feel they really messed up?
Sure. So I'll give one example, for sure. The first example was when we decided to say, okay, we're going to they wanted $1,000. We're going to play into this. We'll give you the money. So my sister's friend, she was the one that was, she was having these actual conversations with the woman who identified herself as T. So while they're on the phone having this conversation, she said, okay, where can we meet you? We'll bring you the money. They said that you could meet us on Monroe Street. She gave an address that was heard very clearly on the audio. And
Mhm.
so from there, one of my sister's other friends, he drove by the location and he's from the area. So when he got over there, he said, okay, he drove past the car. He saw the car. He saw people inside of the car. And
Wow.
he said, you know what, this is the address that they gave, it was a vacant lot. And he said, this feels off. I don't want to get ambushed. I don't want to be in a position where I'm, putting myself in harm's way.
Absolutely.
So he circled the block so that he didn't seem suspicious sitting there. And we called the police at that moment.
Wow.
Unfortunately, the police, instead of going to investigate, what they did is they called my sister's phone. When T answered the phone, the police identified themselves as the police. And from that point forward, they hung up the phone and they immediately left that area. And we didn't find her until 24 hours later.
Wow. I mean, there's so much in what you just told me. So, what you're telling me is police that are supposedly well trained enough to become homicide detectives. And if you're interested in true crime or anything surrounding these sensitive crimes, you know that time is everything, evidence is everything, and making sure you handle a situation correctly is everything, because if it goes wrong, it can go wrong. The thing that I'm hearing you say is the police messed up with calling the phone, identifying that they were police, and allowing her to be taken to another location, which to me, if you're dealing with, because what I'm hearing is this is a hostage situation, this is a negotiating kind of thing. Obviously you had the friend there and back up, so the police could sweep in and hopefully arrest these people and figure out what happened from their mouths, from Kayla being alive and having this kind of exchange happen, right? Which would be important to possibly saving someone else's life, getting them off the street and saving Kayla's life more or less. What I'm annoyed about is the fact that you guys set up this meeting. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the police were the ones setting it up. So you guys are already doing the footwork. Then on top of that, you get them to the location. They were there, confirmed by the friend, and the police just mess it up to no end. And when you're doing an investigation like that, there's no chance for a redo, because now this was when they trusted you. They trusted you enough to reveal a location, hoping that maybe they can get some money or exchange a situation with you in that and get Kayla back. But when you ruin that good faith, and it's not that you ruined it, because this is what any smart person would do, get the police there so you're not handling it on your own, because they could black out, they could decide to turn sour, not give Kayla back, what have you. So it just makes sense. But to me, it's just like the fact that they would call and say they were police, ruining any future attempt by your family or any friend to say, okay, but this time, can we get her back? Da 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 da. Why would they trust you after that? You know what I'm saying?
Right, absolutely. And just really being in a situation where we lived in a completely different state, so felt completely powerless anyway, just because of that. But to have the false sense of security, to believe that it's okay, we can actually get the police involved, that was just that was really a blow to the heart. We grow up and we're always taught that if you find yourself in any danger, call the police will help you, the police will come, they'll save you. And so even contrary to the world that we're living in and things that we see, we pulled from that. We pulled from everything that we've ever been taught. And to actually experience it firsthand, how they may or they may not come. All depends on, I guess, whatever, if they feel.
Yep. It depends on how they feel. Yeah. And I think, that's such a powerful point that you're talking about, because we collectively as a society are told that the police are here to protect us, they're here to protect and serve. And, you're not wrong for, nobody prepares for that kind of situation to happen. Like you said, it was a little weird that she would be a no call, no show. Then you're calling her, she's in the background sounding disoriented, talking about a 7-Eleven. Then there's conversations about money and there's extortion involved. It starts to seep deeper into, my sister's in a hostage situation, she is in real danger, I don't even know. Okay, I'll call the police, because they're the people in society that you would think would have the knowledge of what I should do next. Should I call a lawyer? Should I do this? Should I do that? The fact that they ruined this attempt where you could have had Kayla alive, probably traumatized, probably had gone through a lot, but still alive, and they thought that this was the best route to go about getting her back is really insane to me, actually. And it goes to show how not well trained these people are, first and foremost, but two, the wishy-washiness of who they choose to protect and serve is really the key thing, and who they take seriously when it comes to a situation like this, I think is just stressful. So going back to, the cops' involvement and their lack of involvement and stuff like that. So did you talk directly with the police yourself when you were setting this up? And did you think that there was some incompetence when you were telling them the situation on the phone before things happened? Or after the bungled rescue attempt, you saw, okay, these people are insane?
Yeah, so there were two failed rescue attempts. That was the first of the other one was by the there was a woman who in a neighborhood who actually saw and called the police to report some suspicious activity that was happening inside of the car outside of her home. The police didn't come. She called a total of 3 times from I want to say in the span of about 12 hours. And the police ultimately arrived the next day. That's how we found her. But in terms of the incompetence, I did right away. I did from each department. So when Kayla originally was found, she was alive, barely holding on, just barely holding on, but she was still breathing. And so the police, I'm asking, I'm like, are we doing a rape kit? What's going on? Are we going to do a, anything? Are we going to try to collect evidence?
Right.
So this is the first time that I heard, which has been a recurring theme for the entire year, that unfortunately, at the time, they were not investigating it as a criminal activity or a criminal event because Kayla verbally said that she fell down the stairs. Now, my cousin who lives in the DMV area, he sprung into action himself when he found out that Kayla was missing. And so, he just as chance had it, he rode up every single one of the streets that he knew around that particular area that she was last known to be, and pulled up at the very same time as the police. And so when he pulled up with them, he immediately FaceTimed me. So I was as present as I could actually be at the time. And I'll say this, that number one, she was found in the backseat of her car. She was on the floor of the backseat of her car with the sheet thrown on top of her. She had some beautiful dreads. They were pulled out of the side of her head, and they were thrown on the front seat of the car. And when they pulled her out of the car, they all you could hear were like moans and groans, but nothing audible at all. No words. I didn't hear any type of words being articulated or anything. My cousin didn't hear it. When I spoke with the doctor when they arrived, they said that she had not been verbally responsive since they came. Yet the theme has continued to be that she stated that she fell down the stairs, and as a result, they weren't really investigating it as a criminal activity. When she finally passed, that theme still continued, though. They did not, they did move it to a homicide department. We do have a case number. It was ruled a homicide by the medical examiner. However, they said that because that was kind of her last dying will and testament, and this is according to the lieutenant and the lead homicide detective, that there was a lot of gray area. There's not a whole lot that they could do because she said that no criminal activity took place. My thing is, I'm not sure how that is even logistically possible based on the condition that they found her. And then in addition to that, even if there is, I've asked to see the body cam footage. I've been denied seeing it. But even in the event that she did say those words, she had blunt force trauma to the head. Who's to say that she was even aware of what was going on at that time to take that as actual, as gold,
Yeah.
So I really felt from the beginning the incompetency.
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I think the first thing that I want to make clear is, okay, this is already happening. They bungled the first attempt. They know that she is in the custody of two individuals because they were going to supposedly do the hostage exchange and be there for backup in that situation. They messed that situation up. So automatically in one's mind, you would think it doesn't matter what she says to you, because clearly if she's in a hostage situation, she's not in a good place. Whoever these people are do wish her harm. So obviously listening to what Kayla said or whatever about falling downstairs or whatever, you could take that. I don't know if that'd even be something that could be worked out in court, because it's kind of like, okay, she was injured when you found her and you already knew she was in a dangerous situation. So I don't understand why you would just cherry pick that statement and say, this is it. She told us she fell down the stairs. That's the end all be all. We don't have to investigate. That's strange. And then secondly, like you were saying, when she was found, when the FaceTime call happened, she wasn't speaking. She wasn't verbal. So it's one of those things where it's like, so you were there with the FaceTime, your cousin was there when she was found, everything. So at what point in time would she have said she fell downstairs is the first thing. And secondly, who cares if she fell downstairs if she's found under a sheet in the back seat of her car with her hair ripped out? That's the other thing that I don't really understand, because if she fell downstairs, why would she then did she roll into her back seat and take her hair out? Like, that doesn't make sense. And so it doesn't. And so again, it's this kind of, for lack of a better term, pissing on the family and saying it's raining, but also like gaslighting you kind of thing, where it's like, okay, none of this makes sense. What you're telling me is a story as to why you're not deciding that it's a homicide and worthy to be investigated as that. But on top of that, you're telling me she said this and I'm calling your bluff. Like, where's the body cam footage then? Like, if she said it, you would have no issue pulling that up and being able to say, here, this is Kayla saying that, blah, blah, blah. And even then, that's not even an excuse. Like you said, she had blunt force trauma to the head anyway, so she could have been saying anything. So it's just kind of like a really flimsy excuse for me, where it's like, just say you're lazy or just say you don't care and we can just move past this and I can figure out what I need to do to get justice. But don't pretend that you're helping me or you're carrying out Kayla's last wish when none of what you're saying makes sense and you're using it to block me from finding the truth,
I think I would certainly respect more if I would have received my caseload is too heavy. I can't, I need to pass this on to someone else who may be able to focus a little bit more attention on this case. I could have respected those things. I have not been unreasonable. My family has not been unreasonable at all. It's been a full year and we are just now speaking out because we have been trying to trust the process.
Right.
And so I could have been told that easily, and I would have accepted a completely different detective with open arms, with the hope that, they would really start to focus and try to dig into this case as much as possible. Right. Unfortunately, I just continue to feel very pushed to the side. And it's very much so, it feels very much so like this does not matter. This doesn't, it's not important case. It's not high priority. It hasn't been high profile. It hadn't been with the media, they hadn't even put anything out there into the media to even try. Before, I don't want to go too far just into, off a tangent, but, they hadn't even, there's a database with DC homicides for unsolved crimes. And our sister, she wasn't even, if you put her name in there, you can't find her in there.
Wow. So they have, see, and this is my thing, when people try and say, trust the process, trust the system, it works this way, da, 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 da. when you're telling your story, all you can sit here and believe it's beyond incompetence. It's beyond that. What you're saying with your actions is you don't care about this person's life, even though it's your job to care and you're paid to care. We're not asking you to go out of your way or whatever. This is literally your job. And I really appreciate that you brought up, had they said their caseload was too heavy, because that's often an excuse they use for brushing things off and just saying, oh, whatever. But it's like, then find somebody, because this is a dangerous situation and you're not just trying to solve a crime for us and give us peace. These people are roaming free. These people clearly have ulterior motives. They're taking advantage of people who are kind-hearted, and they're trying to get money from them. And if they don't get that, they're violent. So you would want to get off the streets anyway.
And you know what? And just to that point, just a little bit, I think that should have been the urgency, actually, if the life that was lost, if that wasn't urgent, just the mere thought that someone else could be getting set up and put in this very situation with this child. And oh my God, just stopping for a second and think about this kid. It's
Right.
like, what trauma are they seeing? What are they going through? I mean, there were times within the audios, you actually heard the kid. So if my sister was in whatever state of being that she was, this 6-month-old baby, though he probably won't remember or can't comprehend what was going on, there will come a time where he will.
Yes.
And that's a danger. That's a danger to that poor child.
Well, and that's a really good point, because in these conversations, I feel like a lot of people forget about the baby. The baby, like, don't you want to figure out who these murderers are to take the kid away? Innocent life, I just don't understand the logic. I don't understand the mindset. I don't understand it. And if, to me personally, you're getting too jaded to care about human life in general, this shouldn't be your job, because that's what the center of the job is. But you're so right about the baby, because for one, clearly, whatever circumstance this baby was born into, however they got this baby or whatever, it's not okay. It's not safe. I don't know. The fact that you even said that she left the baby with your sister after just meeting her in a parking lot was also strange to me. Like, that's something that I was like, wait, first of all, I would never, if I had a kid, to just leave your kid in a hotel room with someone you met moments before for who knows how long. You said you were on the phone with her for 2 hours. So, that's very unsettling to me about the baby's life, who's caring for the baby, what the baby has seen, what the baby has gone through. And, that sort of kind of, that gets lost in it. But it's like, again, like you were saying, you would think for the future of anyone else who might get set up, or for the baby.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really, really shocking stuff. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit in the story, because I was watching an interview and you had said in that interview that Kayla, when you were trying to convince her not to let this person up and, not to trust this person, that this person had said they had connections to Ipsy. So I just wanted to ask you about that. And is it the makeup brand, and kind of go into that a little bit? I just had some questions about that.
Yeah. So, when she said that was part, that was the initial, part of the conversation when she said, I met this woman and I said, that doesn't feel right. She said, but you know what? She has connections with, people in Ipsy. So she knows, and she knows some of the same people that I know.
Mm.
And I said, well, that sounds, I said, that's really convenient though, Kayla.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't sound right either,
Mhm.
but I think even more so, I think that just kind of, makes me question a little bit more if they did know a lot more information about her, and how did they obtain that information? Was it somebody that, was a little bit closer to her that could have possibly given that, and when I talk to the homicide detectives about those things, I'm like, these things, a lot, if you follow the money, you follow the electronic trail,
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not a detective. And so for anybody that's listening, you know, I certainly don't mean, I hate when people try to tell people, other people, me or anybody else how to do their job. So I'm definitely not trying to do that. You
Right.
know, it seems that the easiest thing to do would be to subpoena the Cash App reports. It would be to subpoena the phone records and just follow the trail. It just seems like that would be at least a start.
Right.
Unfortunately, it was months before they actually even got the subpoena for even tried to get the subpoena for the Cash App reports. I still haven't heard if they even exercised it or not.
Yeah.
But even, you know, with the phone records, again, they could follow the phone records. The homicide detective, there was one conversation that he and I had when we were still having conversations.
Right.
He mentioned that the phone records can be a challenge to get. So maybe you may get them faster than I will. In Michigan, I'm running up trying to go into the AT&T store to see if they would give me my sister's records. I'm not an authorized user on her account. They were not giving me any information. They're not. I mean, I'm like, I am trying as best I can to facilitate, to help. Now, I don't want to hinder the case. I want to help.
Right.
If he said that I can get him faster, I'm going to try to get him faster.
Absolutely.
That didn't prove to be. I wasn't able to get the records at all.
Right.
You know, but you know, again, I don't think I should have been offering that as suggestions to do. And you know, every time I would offer one of those
Right.
suggestions, the response would be, "Oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'll do that."
No, see, and that's, the incompetence kind of showing its ugly head again. But it's so interesting that, you're over here adding things together, making these connections. And like I said at the top of this interview, it seems like there are, cameras. People are being surveilled at all times. There was that other woman who was like, hey, something weird's happening, and they came the next day. It's like there's so many instances where it's like, what is wrong with, I just don't understand why you haven't even attempted to think about how to figure out who these people are, what's going on, and you're just letting it rock and just calling it like, oh, we found her, it is what it is, da 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 da, we're moving on. We're not even classifying this as a homicide. That doesn't really compute with me. But when you were saying that, the fact that Kayla was like the Ipsy thing or the mutual friends thing, and you were still kind of like trepidatious, like, I don't know, like, that seems super weird that you're meeting this woman at night in a parking lot with a 6-month-old baby. She happens to know all this stuff. But I got chills when you said like it causes one to believe maybe they were connected to somebody that knew her, because if she had just met these people, like, obviously not saying that she already knew them, because they could be stalking her, watching her, who knows what the circumstance is. But why would they come at her with that information knowing that she would soften up at that? That's weird to me.
It is very weird.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I'm like, that should be something that's very, very clear. That could clearly be defined off of, you know, some type of phone records, because, you know, what we do know is that, they felt comfortable enough to answer her phone. B, we also know that, within the audio recordings, they talked about keeping the phone away from Kayla. So I know they weren't just holding the phone. I know that they had to have been making some type of calls somewhere.
Right.
So there has to be some type of a trail. There has to be some other person, be it someone that Kayla may have known, be it someone else that just may know a little bit more information. There
Right.
has to be another connecting piece through the electronics, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you are definitely right on the money with that. I also wanted to ask you about those text messages they were sending to your mom about more money, and can you kind of describe that situation and what because it seemed like, from what I gathered, your mom didn't know what was going on with Kayla at that point in time. She was getting these text messages about money and was kind of like, this is weird.
That is correct. So, you know, the conversation that we actually had, the normal conversation that we had, was on a Sunday night.
Okay.
By Tuesday or Wednesday or so, that's when my mom received a text message asking for money. $200, something, can you send me cash at me $200 real quick? I think it was the message. And
Okay.
so my mom sent the money to her daughter.
Right.
And she said, I was okay, I'll send the money real quick.
Right.
Then they doubled back almost immediately and said, can you send me 200 more?
Oh,
And I want to say my mom is probably equally as nice. So she didn't question it right away. So she said,
mhm.
okay, well, maybe she just needs a little extra.
Right.
It was like the third attempt that happened like right away that my mom was like, no, I'm not gonna, no, I mean, you're gonna have to give me some more information. I'm not gonna keep sending you money.
Right.
And again, that was bizarre behavior that had never happened before. So,
Right. And also it's like the $200 increments where it's like, if you're talking to your mom and really need the money or whatever for a bill for whatever, you say, I need $1,000. I need $400. You don't say 200. Oh, okay, that worked.
yeah.
200. Oh, okay, that worked. That's weird. That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. That is super weird. Um, I guess my other question too is, what would you say the motive is? Like, do you think there was, out of all of this, because the money that was being exchanged, it wasn't like $20 million. It was, in increments of relatively small amounts of money. You also have the Ipsy information. Maybe they knew someone mutually or they knew her, but what do you really think the motive was, and what kind of people do you think these people are?
Yeah, I think that the motive had to be money. I think it was from based on what I gather from the conversation, it appeared that they were either homeless or just living some type of transit lifestyle where they either had to sleep in a car or they were sleeping out of, they just didn't have any type of stability in terms of their actual home environment.
Right.
It seemed as if they were, based on the audios, that they were just out hustling, trying to make any money that they could, quick money, in order just to survive day to day. So
Okay.
the $200 increments that they initially got, I
Right.
believe that, though it wasn't small, it was almost like a bait. And probably enough to get through the next few days. But ultimately, when we got to the actual extortion portion of this series of events,
Right.
the dollar amount that was thrown out by them was $1,000. So
Okay.
I think it was very much so driven by money. I
Okay.
think that they understood that that Kayla was a self-sufficient woman, that she had accumulated her own via her own real estate, that she had a very stable job that she had, and
Right.
I think that they gathered that information probably just in conversation,
Right.
and they figured that there was probably more to come.
Right. Right. That is so interesting because I just kind of sat there and wondered because it could be drugs, it could be a bunch of things kind of thing, because, the way that they were going about things just seems way more complicated than it really needed to be if it really was about the money. I kind of I really, really pause at the knowing certain things that she would be softened to. I think that really threw me for a loop because it's like, who are you talking to? Who do you know? Why would you know that? That's so specific and so random. Like you were getting a bad feeling about that. But a robbery or a situation where you're asking for money, because at the end of the day, what I feel from Kayla's energy is if that woman had asked, hey, do you have this amount of money, or can you pay for a room for the night for me and my kid or whatever, she would have done that,
In a
So
heartbeat.
right. So it's like to scam her in the sense of using this baby to manipulate her to getting into the room, and then taking her hostage from that point forward for $1,000. It just seems so strange and erratic. And I heard some of those recordings, and those people didn't really seem, it seemed all over the place. It seemed really weird. And the energy to answer the phone and all of this stuff. So again, I'm just kind of like, it definitely seems money oriented, but I'm just confused about what they were doing versus a level of money they were asking for, when they easily could have maybe gotten $400 from Kayla or something without taking her hostage. I just think that that's super weird. Let me see. So you kind of answered this, but I think I want to harp on this so people understand this. But how soon after the first attempt to rescue Kayla from the situation did they find her in the back seat of the car?
Yeah, so from the first attempt, it was a full 24 hours after. They found her the following day at about 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
So, we're talking about the police being notified, the police calling her phone. That was the previous day, midday. And we're talking about the very next day. So God knows what could have transpired from that time that the police could have actually gone there to investigate, potentially have successfully rescued her.
Right.
We have no idea if there was any further trauma that occurred at that time.
Right.
Just don't know.
And, again, because we are harping on how they bungled it by ruining and eroding the trust that whatever these suspicious actors had in your family, in the friends of Kayla's trying to coordinate the situation, was totally ruined, but also the safety of Kayla. Because now they're like, the police know, which is sketchy, which I mean, people freak out, people, you know what I mean? So you're also, we know she's alive. We don't know in what condition yet, but alive enough for them to want to make the trade. And you're putting Kayla into a very unknown, dangerous situation by just kind of saying, oh, we're the cops.
Yeah.
That's very, so not to be that person, but knowing that this is their job and they should have specific training to do this, there's a lot of blame that rests on them in terms of when you found her and the condition you found her in, because they really forced these people's hands into a situation where maybe they thought they're on us, we just gotta cut and run, da 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 da. And so I just, I want that to be known, that the responsibility is on your shoulders as well. You carry this responsibility because you really messed up, not just us getting to see her, but Kayla's safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess let's see. Can you go into more detail about Kayla's condition when you guys when she was found in the backseat of the car, subsequently more about the autopsy and what kind of injury she had?
Yeah, for sure. So just from the visual,
Okay.
when my mother and I, when we walked into the hospital room, she was on a ventilator. She couldn't breathe on her own.
Right.
Uh, she had her hair was pulled out on the side of on one side of her head. She had two black eyes.
Oh,
She had,
wow.
her jaws were broken, both sides.
Wow.
Uh, she had what appeared to be ligature marks around her neck and around her wrists. It appeared that she had some type of trauma to her stomach. Uh,
Mm.
and that was what we were able to see visually, just with
Yeah.
our own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the autopsy report confirmed that there was a lot of trauma that did take place. And
Mm.
so everything that we visually saw, that also, aligned with the autopsy report as well.
Right.
But yeah, it was very much so visually disturbing to see. When we walked in the when we walked in the hospital,
Right.
uh, one of the things that I remember is when I saw her, my mom immediately said something to her. I said something to her. My mom walked up to the bed first. And the only thing that she seemed as if she were, sleeping at that time, but, just really her breathing was very, very, it was very belabored. Again, she was
Uh-huh.
ventilated and everything. So,
Right. Right.
So when she saw my mom, she almost did this, this gasp, and then one tear rolled down her eyes, and then I walked up to the bed, and then she saw me, she did the exact same thing, and another tear rolled down. But that was the only interaction that we had that felt like she knew that we were present.
Right. Oh my God. That's emotional. It's beautiful, but it's sad because I feel like in her seeing you guys come through the door, she probably had so much to tell you. You know what I mean? She probably had so much to say about what she had gone through, what she had just experienced. And the fact that she could not speak it was probably the emotions that were coming through. And I'm glad that, you were able to see her and have her register you were there, instead of it being this thing where it's like you're there, but you don't know she understands or feels your presence. So that's beautiful. It's beautiful. But I mean, again, like I said, tragic in the sense that she would be the only person that could really tell you what she experienced. And she could not. Yes. Let me think. There is okay, so let me see. Okay, so now we're here. You've been going back and forth with the police after she passes away, the autopsy, things start to kind of settle. What is your relationship with the police from this point forward? And what do they push you aside? Are they shucking and jiving you? Kind of explain that for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So, when we had the conversation with the homicide detective, we agreed that my family appointed me as the liaison for the family. I would be the one that would be having the direct communication, and I would then pass everything off to everybody else.
Right.
I believe that's important to say because I can really speak from a space of just actually knowing and nothing but facts and not secondhand information.
Right.
So the detective and I, we were going to have a conversation. We scheduled a time that we would have a conversation every single Thursday, just with any type of updates. And so every Thursday, I was religious with my calls. I would call and really almost immediately, I didn't really hear a response from him. Right away. Maybe he didn't answer. He'd call me back a couple days later. And again, I was very, very understanding. I understand workloads and I understand how things go. And I understand this is not your only case. I get that. But when we started to go months and he's not even responding, he doesn't pick up the phone anymore. He's not responding to text messages anymore. That's when it became problematic. So, I then got his lieutenant involved, and from that point, he assured me that things would be better. Started calling again and still no response. So much so that my mother and I flew to DC just to go to the precinct, just to have a meeting, just to ask some questions, not walking in a hostile nature, just really wanting to have a conversation since we weren't successful with the phone. And so when we got there, unfortunately, we were told from the main person that was working the front desk. He called the phone and he said, well, the detective, he isn't in right now. And no one from the homicide department walked down to even acknowledge our presence or greet us. We were told that we were promised that we would receive a phone call the very next day. I had to, that the phone call never came the next day. I had to reach out again a week after that, reminding the detective that I was promised a call. He never even acknowledged the receipt of my text message. This was over the course of the summer of 2022.
Okay.
And so here we are now, and we're in April. And I've continued to reach out. I've left several messages. In fact, I've left several messages last week. I did receive a text message back from the lieutenant that stated that I've received your messages, and I would like to have a conversation with you when my superiors are around. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know why the superiors are necessary, but that's fine. But that phone
Mhm.
call still hasn't come over. So it's always a lot of promises, a lot of hope that we start to build up because we are anticipating these phone calls,
Right.
even if the update was very, very minor. We're not asking for the case to be solved on day one. Again, we're
Right.
very reasonable. We just want to know that you're working on it.
Well, and I think that's what people don't understand about communication. You know what I'm saying? And I think when you're in positions like this, FBI, CIA, police, just law enforcement in general, when something like this happens to, this is the very worst possible scenario to happen to somebody's family, to happen to somebody's family member. And when you're trying to, your job is to solve it, your job is to figure out what's going on, you also have to be somebody who understands how communication goes. And even if you have been working on the case for this whole year tirelessly, the fact that you're not saying, hey, we just got the phone records, we'll tell you blah blah blah, hey, we got you subpoenaed for the camera recordings, we've talked to all the people that were working that day who recognize who, this is what we have from that, hey, we got that lady who called 3 times in and she said a couple things, we're putting it all together. It's not that you have to disclose top secret information or any real detailed stuff. It's just the family wants to know, hey, did you forget about us? Hello, are you looking into this? Have you done real material things to try and get information or get answers? And unfortunately, a lot of people in these jobs don't have the proper communication skills to be able to do said jobs, and it's not really built on developing that.
Mm.
It's unfortunate because at the end of the day, what you want to know, and you guys have been very reasonable, you've given it a year before you said, fuck this, I'm speaking on my sister, this is insane, I'm not hearing anything, they're dodging me. You gave them a year to do right by you, to do right by Kayla, and they just don't want to for some strange reason. And it's not like this is like a mind puzzle case. There's a lot of evidence that could really easily lead them in a direction to find these people. It's not that crazy. So it's just really weird that they're really trying as hard as they can to not do that. It seems like they're doing everything they can to not do that, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah, it seems like, that it's another day at the office and that perhaps, there's been a lot of time that's passed and that this case might require a little bit more legwork just because some of the evidence that was fresh at the time, may not be as fresh.
Right.
But, you know, but the effort, just to take the effort, it's not just another day at the office for our family. This is something that's completely life-changing, and it's traumatized her children.
Mhm.
It's certainly traumatized my mother.
Mhm.
To see those two things, to see a mother lose a child and to see to see two children lose a mother are
Mhm.
two of the things I never want to witness ever again. It's probably one of
Right.
the most, devastating things I've ever seen. Uh,
Right.
and, I can't even put into words, me losing my sister. I just have to put my feelings and emotions aside because theirs seems so much greater. And I just have to put my energy into trying to get justice for my family and get justice for my sister.
I mean, there's that big sisterness coming through. You're still trying to make sure things stay on track and make sure that you get justice for your sister by any means necessary. Okay, so I guess my next question, based off of what we just were finishing up talking about, who takes care of you and how are you, balancing being the liaison, thinking about this, going out on social media and trying to get justice on your own now?
Yeah, I think that I think I'm just right in just active mode right now. And I think I have been since everything happened back on March, or since my sister passed away March 11th.
Mhm.
I have just really been just in go mode, making sure that I am looking after my mom, being her support, being her strength, making
Right.
sure that I'm stepping, to try to be, even though we have distance with my niece and nephew, trying
Mm-hmm.
to step in and still, give them the that type of motherly, connection that they're missing. That I have a business that I run. I have a family that I have. So, I can't say that I've necessarily been able to focus on myself a lot, just with trying to work through therapy and just trying to talk with people and find my community, find people that have actually walked in these shoes. I
Right.
say that I'm now a part of this club that nobody ever wants to be a part of.
Right.
So we're it's it's many of us, but they're not that many of us at the same time that are walking in a place where we've lost a sibling, and it's not close enough where it's your child, but and it's not close enough like it's your mom, yet
Right.
it's still right there, where you feel it every single day.
Right.
So I'm just working through it. Grief is a funny thing that I never really experienced before,
Mhm.
and grief comes in waves, and it comes in weird times and in weird places. And I've certainly had my fair share of weird grief moments.
Mhm.
I go from having a normal conversation to crying at just out of nowhere at the
Right.
most inappropriate time. And that's a different place. It's a different place to navigate, and just trying to figure out how to live in this new normal.
I'm glad you said that about grief. That is such a wonderful way of putting it because, weirdly enough, coincidentally, I had an unexpected family loss on March 11th of 2018, and that date is very significant to me as well. But like you were saying, could be weeks where you feel fine. And then, you smell something or you enter into a room and you think about a memory and you're just a wreck. And so that's the side of these situations that people consume for the mess, the drama, the craziness. The other side of it is a grieving family who is struggling to make sense of why, how, what do we do, how do we pick up the pieces. You said she left two kids behind. I mean, that's a mountain within itself to try and make sure that these kids know they are loved, know that they are taken care of, and are able to move through life without a mother. I mean, that is a huge, weight to bear at such a young age. And I think that, you know, when you are in this unique position, because it's not just losing a sibling, it's losing a sibling unexpectedly and violently, then also the case not being solved on top of that. So the peace of mind that comes from a case being bookended and you being able to say, okay, that's what happened, we got to the bottom of it, now I can sit with my thoughts, the kids can sit with their thoughts, and we can just grieve and heal. It just it's what they're robbing from you is just massive. And I just, it's really disturbing to me that they just don't seem to think or care or consider her human. Like, I just don't understand where the human connection lies in all of this.
Yeah, I would say that, and I'm glad you brought that part up too. The one of the things that I've noticed that I feel is
Mhm.
that, my family, they'll say, "What's the update? Have you heard anything from the detectives?
Right.
Anything changed? What can you give us a status, any type of movement on the case?" And, I feel as if I have to present, I only have the facts to give, and the facts
Right.
are, nothing has changed, nothing has moved. It's almost like I'm delivering a death all over again, you
Right.
know? And so it's like to see the disappointment, like,
Right.
oh, over and over again. It's to be so to feel so powerless,
Right.
in something. We believe that we can do anything. All we have to do is just put our mind to it.
Right.
And it's like when things are so far out of your control, sometimes there's just nothing that you can do,
Right.
which is really why. the only thing that I could do is the only thing that I could control in this situation. I couldn't control the action of the police. I
Right.
couldn't control whether someone stepped forward and say that they knew anything. The only
Right.
thing I could control was to tell the story.
Right. And tell the story you did. I just wanted to kind of quickly get into your social media presence and some situations that, what you feel has been beneficial and not beneficial. I know you kind of briefly talked about it at the beginning, but um, can you just go more into detail about the moment that you just said, I'm taking it to TikTok. I don't care. I don't give a damn. I'm doing it. I'm taking this on because I'm tired of reliving this death and not being able to tell my family the cops got somebody, or they didn't, or they're finding, or they're looking, and stuff like that. If you could tell that moment and subsequently kind of what positive things you've received from being out on social media and maybe some of the negative things too.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I was certainly a social media consumer, as many of the world is right now. So I would look, and I would just more so just be on the outside looking in.
Mhm.
Um, Once I did ask my mother's blessing to record the video and also to post the very graphic image that I posted on the first video.
Mhm.
Uh, and she gave me her blessing almost immediately, just because we're both at a state of desperation.
Right.
Um, I've received, I would say that the reception has been mostly positive. I will say that it's been the community has rallied around Justice for Kayla. They've continued to share things. They've continued to tag influential crime solvers like you. They have done those things. But then there's always the flip side of it as well.
Right.
I get the negative comments about, why are you, I chose the approach of doing a get ready with me for the first video.
Mhm.
And the get ready with me was, it was very intentional.
Mhm.
Um, my thought process was, I have young kids. They like to watch people do things all the time when we're watching social media.
Right.
I find myself getting caught up watching people do a repetitive action. And so I said, well, you know what? The story, I have to have something else along with it in order to reach a wider audience. And so I put myself out there completely raw. And my sister was put out there. I was put out there.
Mm.
And I sat there with a blank face, with no hair on, and I just start doing makeup and I start talking. People had they couldn't believe they felt like that seemed a little callous. They thought that I seemed a little cold.
Mhm.
I even so much so that some people even questioned if Kayla was in fact my sister.
Mhm.
Um, so there's been a lot of there has been a lot of negativity on there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that that's where the big sister is coming in. It's like, you gonna mess with my sister? I gotta fight. I'm here to fight. Okay,
Right.
I'm here.
What
So
what's going on?
let's go.
Right.
And fighting in the comments, not going back and forth, but more so just fighting by consistently showing up every
Yeah.
single day for her, pushing past any type of negativity that people are presenting.
Mhm.
Misinformation or the non-facts that people are trying to say. My fight is showing up every single day to debunk those, but also to continue to bring awareness.
Right.
Again, it's certainly the reason behind the post was my sister, but there are so many other reasons to continue to show up every day for other people that might be finding themselves in a situation where they want to extend a kind gesture to someone, and want to take somebody in,
Right.
or maybe somebody has actually encountered something very similar to this and they just
Mhm.
never felt courage to speak out. So there are so many other reasons that were born. But the negativity, I would say, the positivity has certainly outweighed the negativity from the social media response.
That's wonderful to say. I going back to what you were saying with, the approach you took with deciding with your first video, I'm going to do a get ready with me. And, the thing that's crazy to me is people do get ready with me and telling a true crime story all the time, all over social media. That's like a whole genre within itself. And the craziest part is they don't know these people. They don't know these people's families. They're just telling someone's story, right, wrong, or indifferent. They're doing that. And so the reality is, this is your family. This is your sister. This is clearly something you wrote past your mom and asked permission to do on the back end. So it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you have the right to tell your sister's story however you decide to tell it. And no one should fault you for being strategic with that, because at the end of the day, like you said, over 2 million eyes, have seen or, heard justice for Kayla in some capacity. So going through it with an angle isn't callous. It's something that's strategic, because you've had a whole year. Okay. You've dealt with the horror of the situation in terms of the initial shock, but also over time, you've been dealing with the incompetence and the indifference from the police department. This is your final straw. You're taking a stand for yourself, and no one should feel any kind of way that your family doesn't feel. They're taking on feelings that really, if you're being callous, in their opinion, the callousness would affect the victim's family, which you are. So it doesn't really, make sense. So I'm just happy that, at the end of the day, you're choosing the high road. You're choosing to kind of take control of the narrative of your sister, and you're taking it into your own hands, which hopefully we will get justice for Kayla in that kind of situation. We kind of briefly discussed this, and I just wanted to ask you a few things about some of not the public response per se, but some of the videos that have been made in regards to Kayla's story. I know at the end of the day, in situations like this, you want the news to spread. So whoever picks it up and talks about it, there's some level of importance to that. There's some level of, okay, their audience will hear about Kayla's story, and maybe someone there can tell someone here, and that kind of thing. But at the same time, there is a respect level and a way to go about these things. And I just want to, knowing some of the experience you've gone through, because this is a very dramatic story, what are certain things that you feel like, and no, you don't need to be specific, have rubbed you the wrong way about how certain people have approached talking about it? And what would you want to see moving into the future if people want to tell Kayla's story? What would you like to see?
Yeah, thank you for that. So, I understand that, when there is something that seems to be trending, people typically want to, jump on board and, and present it on their platforms or do duets and all that stuff.
Right.
And I appreciate the awareness for sure. Some of the angles that I've received, that I've visually saw myself, some of them were coming from an over dramatized, the situation is over dramatized, but
Right.
really highlighting the fact that that there was a podcaster that initially brought up my sister's past, and trying to take that and create a narrative behind it. When I think that if they would have asked me, then I could have, certainly told them that, I could have explained furthermore the story, but also I think even more so the fact that the toxicology reports didn't have anything in it. So,
Right.
there is no story in that way.
Right.
So I could, if they would have just had a conversation with me, I could have certainly answered any of those questions. But so that, I guess the only thing that I would say is, my goal is to, present the facts
Right.
as I know them, and I have a lot of them. And so for those that are interested in presenting Kayla's story, I welcome any and everybody to reach out if you feel like your platform could move this story along in any way.
Right.
And I am the source to get the actual facts, and just ask me about them instead of creating a different narrative. I think that could be dangerous.
Right.
When you try to create something that seems like there was something nefarious going on with my sister,
Mhm.
and to try to add an interesting plot twist to the story. I think that could be dangerous, because what happens is the community, they then start to find themselves side-eyeing the victim. And
Mhm.
though we should never ever victim shame in any capacity, I don't care what one has gone through, what one is going through. Victim shaming is just probably the most tasteless thing that one can do, because
Right.
nobody asked to be a victim. Nobody said, I just want to be a victim here and sign
Right.
me up. So I think that it would have eliminated a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you spoke on that. I just think that ultimately it is important for creators or people to understand that there is a family attached to every one of these situations. This is not just Kayla's story, it's Kayla and her family, her children, her ex-husband, you guys, everybody gets affected by how her story is told, especially because this case isn't solved yet. It's one thing to have a speculation about how something was handled or something when the case is solved and justice was received. But when there's still so many that we are still so far from the case being completely solved and ended, you're adding your speculation to the situation isn't helping anybody. It's harming the case, it's harming the family, it's harming Kayla's legacy. The reality is it's important to, like you said, stick to the facts. And I know that you've been doing a lot of interviews and talking to a lot of people, which is wonderful. It's really important that you do that. And getting in touch with you, getting in contact with you was fairly simple in terms of putting this together. And so I just think if anyone wants to continue to hold the banner up for justice for Kayla and keep the story alive, getting the easiest and the best place to start is to talk directly to the source and see what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Definitely. I just have one more question, and we will kind of wrap this up. When I like to manifest, so when you do get justice for Kayla, what are some of the questions that you personally have about this situation that you hope get answered?
Yeah. So I mean, I think that the natural person in me, I just want to know why and what happened. When we get justice for Kayla, I too sit in a place where I believe it's power in what we say, and we can manifest anything. So when we do get justice for Kayla, um, really understanding. Hoping that they understand the great life that they stole,
Mhm.
and how that has forever impacted and changed our lives. Um, I don't sit in a seat of unforgiveness.
Mhm.
I just want justice. So I don't wish them ill will, or I don't wish any harm on their families because of what they did to us. I simply just want justice to be served. And our justice system says that if you take somebody's life, then you gotta go do the time.
Do the
And so,
time.
I mean, I think that is more than fair in this case, and I just want fairness.
I agree. I that was just really well put. I think where I want to end with it and what I want to just say before, because I want to definitely get you to say your socials and where people can keep up with you, the GoFundMe and all of that. But what I just want to end off saying is 2 weeks ago, or I think it was last week, the FBI came out with the Shanquilla Robinson case and basically said that they were not going to pursue charges. They also said they didn't see it as a homicide situation. I don't know how, but you know what I'm saying. And that really resonated with me in terms of you retelling the story about their perception of what happened to Kayla, and them really just actively choosing to not see it as a homicide, which it very clearly was. I was able to watch live the press conference from the family, and the lawyer that they had basically said, this is a setback. This isn't an end all be all. It's important to have hope. It's important to understand that there are two justice systems in this country. And unfortunately, for people of color, there are just a bunch of extra steps that we have to do to get to the same result as they get when they just say something happened. And what she did say was, with the she used the example of the Ahmaud Arbery case. It basically said, when we first heard about it, the reality was the family was going all around trying to get justice, and they were getting blocked until it hit national news, until the nation was watching them. Then they pulled those men out and got that justice really fucking quick. And so what I have to say to you, and what I want to just say in general, is there are just, unfortunately, a bunch of extra steps. I truly believe that there is a case here. I believe if someone would just do their jobs correctly, it could potentially be an open and shut situation. I'm sure Kayla wasn't their first victim. I'm sure she's not going to be the last person they approach on that type of timing, but it's a setback. That doesn't mean, a year from now or in a few months, you will be in a completely different place with this case. Maybe it'll be solved. Maybe we can get more news coverage, but there's just a bunch of extra steps. So keep that hope alive. Everybody just stay in the positive mindset that we will get justice for Kayla. Kayla will have her life, have justice for what happened to her. It's important to know that and sit with that, because when you think about how those cases ended up ending, with certain people, certain Black Lives Matter cases, certain homicides and stuff like that happened to us, there was justice. It may not have been in the timing that we expected, or we think we think the justice system should work for us, but I think there will be justice for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so, just to that point, my goal is to we did create a GoFundMe. The GoFundMe is for us to hire a private investigator. It does appear that we are not going to have any movement with the case by just going the traditional route and just trusting the process with the homicide department, unfortunately. And also because of the fact that it has been a full year, that there may need to be someone who specializes in doing this type of work and investigating and solving cases that are starting to run cold. So the goal is to raise enough money to then hire a private investigator in hopes that they can uncover some things that the police either haven't looked for, or that the police have missed. And so that we can present that information to the police, and they could finally do something about these people that are still walking the street. It is my hope, it's my prayer that we raise over the amount that I'm asking for, not because of personal gain.
Right.
It's for my mother and we are creating a foundation for my sister, in where we plan to give away money to kids that have lost their parents tragically. And we just don't know the lasting effects of losing a parent, traumatically like that. We just don't know what those lasting effects are. And I think that those kids need a little extra love and a little extra support. And I do not want my sister's legacy to end with this to end on this tragic note. I want to be able to give life to other kids. It's my mother's prayer that she gives life and pours life into these other kids that may seem a little lost and hopeless, in the name of my sister Kayla.
That is a wonderful thing to do. I mean, it's very commendable the strength that I'm seeing from you and what I see, the energy I get from how you speak about your mother and how she's handling things, I just really am inspired by how you're moving with grace and choosing to really make a better situation out of a terrible situation. You're already thinking about other people, and we haven't even been able to get the justice that is deserved for Kayla, which I think is a wonderful thing to turn that legacy into something beautiful that helps other people maybe in a similar situation. So I must say, hats off to you. I'm truly, truly inspired. This was a wonderful interview. I'm so excited to get this up, get this out there. Obviously, we're going to be going live together before this drops. So I'm excited for that. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I know it must be hard to rehash the story a bunch of times with a bunch of different people, but I truly appreciate it. And we are going to do our part to get justice for Kayla.
Thank you so much. And for anybody else out there, I know this is a lot, and I know that the parts, they move really, really quickly. But I do have a lot of information on the TikTok page. You can find that at my name, Janan McDougal. And you can find me on Instagram also. Janan McDougal is the same. But on there, you can hear some of the audio recordings that may not be posted here. You can hear, you can actually see some of the other things that, that I listed on there. And maybe even if you have some questions that we didn't address on there here, I know that there are a lot of questions that I took the time out to make sure that I addressed and answered. I feel like the community has stood with me in this. And so I'm going to stand up and I'm going to, answer the questions that you guys have, to the best of my ability.
Absolutely. Definitely, you guys go check her out. As I said at the top of this, and I'm going to say again and a million times over, the numbers for the homicide detective are in the description as well as in the pin comment. The number for the lieutenant, who also was a part of taking over this case, are in the description and in the pin comment, as well as, most importantly, the link to the GoFundMe, the Justice for Kayla GoFundMe. As we just heard Jaden talk about, she wants to do more with that money to help other people, but also at the core of it, raising money to get to the bottom of the situation, to get that extra help, to get that to that next lily pad of gaining more information and pushing on the door of the police department to actually do their job. So if you have any spare time, if this case touched any part of you, touched your heart, please donate, please call those numbers, please do your part that you can, collective action to push them into actually giving a fuck about solving this case. That being said, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I appreciate you so much.
Ciao. I mean, Janan said it the best. I think one of the main sticking points that I'm confused about in terms of the neglect from the police department is the fact that there's a baby involved. There's a 6-month-old child involved. At this point, this baby's close to 2. But at that age, it was made clear that there was an infant involved in this. These people murdered this woman. These people held this woman hostage, all while having a baby in their care. Okay? So we just, obviously, unfortunately, what happened to Kayla happened, and it's a very tragic situation that she didn't deserve at all. But on top of that, these people are still running the streets. They have not been taken in. The police department isn't even investigating this as a homicide at this point in time. So they're all still out there, and they could be doing this to other people and targeting other people. But on top of that, there's a fucking baby involved. So the fact that didn't cause urgency on the side of the cops is concerning. But in general, I just think that we need to not only think about Kayla, we need to think about Kayla, but also think about the baby, and also think about all the potential people that these people could be in contact with at this point. Yeah. Again, what I will do is I'm going to desperately on my knees ask that you guys do at least one of these 3 things. Call the lead homicide detective, Brian Adelmeyer, at 202-430-8924, or his lieutenant, Lieutenant Petz, at 202-553-4132. Or, as I said at the top of this video, donate to the Justice for Kayla GoFundMe. Again, the link is in the description box as well as in my pinned comment. I will also have Janan McDougal's social media, so you can keep up to date with what's going on with the case, if there's any updates and all of that, of course. And maybe if we're able to, hopefully there are updates that happen soon, maybe we can invite her back on so she can talk more about those updates. Yeah, hashtag Justice for Kayla Barfield. Like and comment if you want me to do more interviews. I would love to do more interviews. And I guess that being said, Black Lives Matter and Free Palestine until it's backwards.